is Tony Diamond, and I'm here today to talk about my book, A Pebble on the Beach. The book itself is about my childhood, the first 15 years of my life. I was born on a council estate in Hove back in 1949 and was one of 9 children from my mother and stepfather.
This is where it all started. I moved here when I was about 6 years old, and in and out from care, I went from that house over there.
Which one is it?
Number 36, that one there for the sale sign at this particular time. See through the back garden, the school over in the back there. The very one I used to climb over the fence every day to go to school.
We spent a lot of our years in and out of care because of different circumstances. At the age of 10 years when I was out of care, because of my total uncontrollability by now, I was to suffer the indecency of having electric shock treatment, which back in those days was, if you had a problem, if you were hyperactive, electric shock treatment was supposed to be the best thing for you. After 4 treatments they found out it was doing me more harm than good, and to this day I still suffer with the effects. During a few years later, my stepfather came back on the scene after being separated from my mother for 11 years, and he was, a week after he arrived back, they got remarried. Still in the Merchant Navy, he used to go away quite often, and for us life seemed to be more of a family life when he came back for the first couple of years, after which he came shoreside and got a job working from home, and he was like a fish out of water, and the worse the job got, the more we'd get beaten. After a couple of years later, Dr. Barnardos came back on the scene and asked me and my brother if we would like to go to Australia. We were very excited at the fact of going to Australia, but it was just the 2 of us. I mean, I didn't know I was 15 years old. I hadn't even left school. And it was just, how could you say, a journey for us, and it was exciting, it was a fun thing. So my mother said, oh well, that's nice. The letter arrived, and she read it, and she said, that's got rid of you too, which was a strange thing for her to say at the time. And it said that 3 weeks later we were going to go to Dr. Barnardo's village in Essex, and from there prepare to go to Australia, which we did. We were met there with 7 other children, and all nine of us were to travel to Australia on the 30th of March 1965. We arrived there after a 2-day journey. We went New York, San Francisco, Honolulu, Hawaii, and was supposed to go direct to Sydney, but unfortunately we hit a really bad storm and one of our engines cut out, so we had to land in Fiji, which was a bit traumatic at the time, but well, we were just kids having a laugh. We arrived in Sydney and we're all taken into this room for press, and all gathered round and hold our photographs, and one by one we were all taken away, all going different ways. And at the end of about half an hour there was just me and my brother Pat left. And we was introduced to a Nat and Hilda Smith, and we would go and live with them. They had a home in Sydney along with a lot of other children. We were the 2 oldest. We arrived there. 4 days later my brother Pat left and he went out to work on his own. He was 18 and I was sort of left there on my own. I'd come 13,000 miles to be left in a home with loads of young children, and I didn't know anybody. A week later they said that I was not educated enough to go back to school, so I was going to work on one of their farms. And this was a farm up in Scone in New South Wales. This was basically, how could you put it? We basically ran the farm. There was about 8 boys, and we got to go into town once a week on a Saturday night if we behaved ourselves. And we did irrigation on the land, we milked cows, we mucked out pigs, basically general farm work. All the range of the boys would have been my age, 15 to about 17, and then they were there for 2 years, and then basically they went out on their own. Three of the other boys that came out with me did eventually spend time on the farm, but none of them stayed that long. After 2 weeks on the farm, I decided I'd had enough, so I packed my bags and just walked off the farm and started walking the 10 miles back to the nearest town. I got myself a job as a plumber's mate, and lasted about 3 weeks, and then I was called up because I wanted to join the Royal Navy to go down to Sydney to do my interview. After my interview, I got my score was, I think it was -10, so because I could barely read or write, so they told me to come back in a couple of years' time when I'd learned to read and write. So the next thing, I tried to join the Merchant Navy. I mean, I had a lot of jobs while I was in Australia. The longest was 2 weeks, the shortest was half an hour. So when I received the letter from Barnardos turning around and saying you've got to get stuck into it, I suppose it was a bit understandable, but the prosecution bit I didn't really like too much. Anyway, we were sitting in our room one night, and I was going through the papers, because I always used to go through the papers for the ships. And I saw the ship, the Afric. And I remember the ship because back in 1965, when my stepfather came home, he took us all to London to pay off from this ship. And during that time, we were taken round the ship, shown all the different parts of the ship. And I said to John, look at this, it's the Afric. John said, so what? I said, no, it's the Afric Shore Savile. In 1965, my stepfather came on this. I know the ship. It's in Part 7 down in Sydney. So we said, well, I said, oh, look, it's going back to England. Let's go and stay away. So we laughed about it for a little while, and we had a few more beers, and we got a bit of Dutch courage, and we got the train down to Sydney, and down to the docks, Part 7, and there she was, the Afric, all lit up like a Christmas tree. Following his instructions, we were soon inside of her. There she was, looking smaller than I remembered, but it was her all right. The Afric written high across her stern. Just seeing her again was like seeing a piece of home, and convinced me even more that this was a good idea. With a bit of luck, she'd be taking me all the way home, but first we had to overcome the first obstacle, the gatehouse. We were not going to get through there in a month of Sundays. Come on, Tony, it's a waste of time. Hang on, mate. I didn't say it would be easy. There must be another way in. We followed the fence along the gatehouse and into the dark. By now it was 11 o'clock, and we'd have to make our move. Finding a good place to climb, I scaled the fence and waited for John on the other side. Over he come. Now what, he asked. I don't know, we'll play it by ear. We stood back in the shadows for ages, just waiting to make our move. Watch out, Tony, here comes the fucking gatekeeper. And we pressed ourselves close to the fence as he walked towards us, flashing his torch. He walked straight past us and round the corner. It was then we got our first lucky break, as we heard the sound of running water. He's having a piss. Quick, let's make a run for it. Making a quiet but very hasty move, we were soon on the wharf amongst the workers loading the ship. With all the activity, nobody batted an eyelid at us. Now what? Asked John. Well, we can't stand round here all day. Just walk on board, I suppose. Yeah, right, you go first, smart ass. Why me? I said, trying to edge John in front of me. Because it was your bloody idea in the first place. I laughed. Okay, mate, shit or bust, let's do it.